Hey, what's going on, guys? Long time no talk. Pretty much just been letting our positions just ride, if I'm being honest, so there hasn't been much activity. But we saw a couple things happen today. I'll talk about the main one. I did post that I'm going to be looking at a new position here. I'll show that next. But Lam Research here really absorbed that earnings very well. Obviously, we have this weekly here against this massive monthly level with very, I think, clear signs of accumulation that have come off of these last two monthly bars. You guys can see it on the weekly. You guys can see it on the daily, right? It's pretty much off the 73 spot. And then obviously with the earnings, we ended up kind of gapping up, and really we're digesting this over the past couple of days and holding that small peg here. But really, I want to add into those contracts that I had, right? I haven't closed them. I haven't done anything with those. I said I would add on a trend, but this looks pretty healthy to where I think I would just start to add into this now. Just depending where we end up opening tomorrow and keeping my risk underneath this low, right? So like 73.18 is obviously that monthly level, but I would honestly just risk 71.43 and just add into those June contracts. So I think that that's going to be first and foremost, right? That's going to be the first thing I do. I really like the risk to reward here. I like the volume anomalies. I like the monthly that we've seen that I'm kind of just going to speak on a lot whenever I review this chart. And then obviously I like the weekly. And obviously the split's already occurred, so I really think that this is just pending a markup. I don't know what that would be. But yeah, I like how this kind of looks here and how this is shaping up. And I expect it to move not just towards 89, right? I think this has a little bit more room to go to this here, right? So the first two targets would probably be, let's kind of make these a little bit closer, like 86 and then 89. We would just be targeting these daily lower highs. But this chart looks really good. So I wanted to just put that out there really quickly because I have had this position. I know a couple people have asked about this. I said I would wait for a trend, but really just I like the way this is really just absorbing that earnings. I don't know. I don't want to say earnings candle, but I want to say like the earnings itself, right? I think that's the best way to phrase it. And it looks healthy. Risk to rewards there. It's pretty much solidified. We didn't gap down from earnings. We got a gap up, and it's digesting it pretty well. So that's first and foremost. And then last but not least, this is the position I think I'm going to start looking at for the next big position. I shouldn't say big either. You guys just know I've been all over MU. I've been over, what's the other one? Crowd. I think this might take the next place here. I've been all over Intel. But we actually saw some of the highest volume ever occur on BA, right? Boeing. If you guys have seen this one, I talked about this one briefly where I said that this could be a really good lotto back here off of this trend line that we've seen where we've had these three major lows. And it's really gotten steep from September, right? You guys can see it's been a slow downtrend underneath that swing low. And selling has gotten pretty small with these random pops of like these hammer candles and high volume days with large lower wicks, right? And then we came down into their earnings. They ended up having a small, I think it was a small move down from their earnings, but we saw what I believe to be a footprint candle, right? So I think that this is the end of a campaign, right? We always talk about campaigns usually at the top. When you have a footprint candle at the highs, that's your distribution and that's your top, right? Or if you have one at the bottoms, that means that the distribution campaign's over, an accumulation campaign is now started, and you can then watch for an impending markup or a markdown, whatever side of it you're on. And I really think that this has some good potential with a very clean trigger. So I'm going to be watching for not just an entry right away, right? That's important not to do, but I'm going to be waiting for a breach above 159.70, base that, and then I expect this to mark up into this little blue zone that I have here, right? So candle open would be here, candle closes there, so there's a small gap if you guys can't see from here to there, right? So 167 to 173.74. Sorry, this is black. I'll change this really quickly. But that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? And really the trigger for this 159.70, reason for that, it's very simple. This is that swing low before a new low was made, and then we really started to see that divergence and not only volume, it is still relatively high, right? I mean, this isn't low by any means, but that the lower lows being made, kind of being absorbed, the spread getting really tight. Right, I mean the monthly here as well kind of could close. I don't want to say it's going to close in an inverted hammer. We don't really know just yet, but it's getting very tight. And then with that daily candle, right? I mean, just I can't ignore that. And if it can somehow get back above 159.70, And this also ties in really nicely with that gap, right? So we talk about progression gaps. So the close was here, opens right around there. So, I mean, if it can get back above the top of that progression gap and kind of hold right in this general area, and actually, progression gap would be right here. Right, so just base the top of that and hold that progression gap. You can get some kind of like SOS type thing, right, where you get the break and reclaim of a key level following the footprint candle. This might need a little bit more time to just do something like this, where it starts to trade sideways a little bit. Maybe it rejects high type flag and then breaks and bases, whatever it ends up doing, right? This is just going to be something I'm watching, and I think this could be a really nice payout, right? If we can get something here and manage to take this all the way up to that 173.74, that's roughly 9% on the underlying, or 14 points. I think this could be a really lucrative play on a beaten down name, a name that a lot of people have kind of taken off their watch list and don't really pay attention to anymore. And yeah, just something I want to keep my eyes on. I always keep an eye on footprint candles around earnings, either before or after. So this is going to be one that's definitely going to be on the watch list. 175 calls would be what I'm targeting. Expiration date to be determined. We'll have to see what premiums are once we crack 159.70. But add this to your watch list, guys, because I definitely think this is going to be one that ends up performing rather well. And as for AMD, guys, obviously not the move that we wanted from earnings itself, right? I mean, it's kind of a bummer. I thought this thing would get the pop necessary to trade up into that 176.80 gap fill. Obviously, we breached this. Kind of looks like a path of least resistance setup here, but really I was expecting this to trade up into this little zone up here, right? I talked about this on my scan. I thought we'd literally pop up, hit this, reject, hold 162, and then start to trade out, right? And then break and base. Do something like that, ideally by November 15th. Got an incredible move today, guys. I mean, moved all the way up to what was the high today? 167.50. Those 10 contracts that I was kind of using as like my runners per se after the initial rally that we capitalized on came pretty close to break even. I closed 5 of them. I got back down to like my initial runners position, something I really didn't care about, and I mitigated it even more. And I was going to hold that into the earnings. If you guys didn't know as well, I did an alert like a small 2 contract trade once we broke and then based up here, right? We had like the shooting star, but it was pretty low volume, so I ended up taking contracts. We held it really nicely. We broke into that gap. We based the gap, and then we traded to the top of that gap, based the top of that gap, and then it rallied even more. But yeah, like I said, unfortunate that this ended up kind of melting all the way down underneath 155.74. I'll probably end up closing those contracts unless we get some kind of miraculous move back above 162 by pre-market. If we can do that, I mean, my thesis is pretty much in play, right, where we ended up hitting kind of this general range for this gap here, and then selling down and then basing and then moving up, right? That's the general thesis that I had, regardless of what this price action is. If we can somehow get above 162, I still think that thesis is valid regardless of this sell-off here, right? So I'm going to be watching maybe a pre-market open right around 162. I know that's a big ask, but if we can get that, I'll add into those contracts for sure. If not, I'm just going to close those and kind of take this off the watch list, guys, if I'm being honest. This name has been pretty, I don't want to say it's like been pretty much taken in, I shouldn't say taken advantage of. We did a good job on it, but like, I don't know what the right word is. Like, we kind of milked it for all it can be, right? I think this chart's starting to become a little bit unhealthy, especially with how much ground it gave back. So unless it gets above 162, I'm probably going to close those 5 and not look at this again. I think there's better charts, but yeah, just nature of the trade, right? That's sometimes with these earnings, you can't really control some of these things. Even though it looks good, everything feels good, they don't always have to go to your target by a specific timeline. So just unfortunate with that one, but that's really all I wanted to cover, guys. I really don't have anything else. I mean, other than that, MU, really healthy day, right? We talked about this one. I'm a little upset I didn't add into this where we had this like weekly lower high range, higher low, right? And we just kind of like an SR flip between 105, 108. And this sold right into, what did it sell into? Right off the open. Sold right into 105. I was a little hesitant on adding into this. just like because the market looked like it was going to start selling, and it literally caught a bid right off of that and rallied about $3, right? And I regret not adding into this one. It is what it is, but I'm still heavily situated in this one, so it's not that big of a deal. Really, we're just looking for a continuation above this bar, whether we open right around the close or just a little bit under. We're just looking for a pop above 108, maybe hold that, and then starting to trade up towards these highs, right, which would be right around here. Right, I don't know what the price is. Let me put the price on. Like 114, 115. Then I think above 114, 115, I think we're going to get an influx of new buyers, people that like to trade the breakouts or the highs are probably going to start jumping in. So we'll start to see a reinvigoration of volume, in my opinion. So that's, this chart is just still remaining very healthy and should be a top focus still. So I'm not overthinking it. I'm just letting this play out. We still have till January, so about 2 months, 3 months. And that's really it for that one. Nothing crazy. The weekly still looks really good, guys. Everything is still in play with this chart. There's nothing to really worry about, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much that one. Crowd, excellent mover today. I mean, it just did exactly what I wanted. Held this 299.85, which is this previous high. Obviously, it's been a little sticky around here, a little bit longer than I would have liked. But we did get that news candle. Remember the higher volume news day? I forgot what it was. It was like Delta Airlines is going to be suing CrowdStrike for the outage. But as it sold off, majority of that volume wasn't from the sell-off. The volume actually came from the buying that wicked this back above. So if you want to say this is like the footprint or like the buyers taking a stand off of that high and actually showing they're here, this was actually the true move of it, was buying, right? So closed back above 299.85. Doji above that level, even lower volume, so sellers are not in control of this. Buyers still manage to hold and are dictating price. And then really nice kind of wick back down to 299.85 and then a pop from there, right? And we got a really strong close today, albeit you don't need a ton of volume to kind of continue here, right? That's kind of the motto if you guys didn't know that. As long as the volume comes on harmonic breaks, we're fine. So I'd want to see a lot of the higher volume come here if we can get to 316 or maybe taking out this high. That's where I'd want to see the higher volume. But yeah, same thing, same exact thing. I want to see it maybe open around close, maybe around the high, and just continue up into this 316, whether it ends up being a high tight flag or we break in base, right? I'm just looking for a continuation into this gap and just further pressing into this 336 to 342 spot. And that's pretty much it, right? I mean, there's another gap up here that I haven't even talked about on this one that has some potential. This is obviously going to be an outlier move. Why do you guys think I grabbed December contracts? Intent? I think it could do it. This is a lazy gap, right? I mean, the gap's technically a little bit higher, right? It's up here, but yeah, this could be a special chart. This one's behaving really well. I posted about it. I'm up like 33%, 35%. The Decembers aren't as spready either, so the differential or the difference between it shouldn't be that crazy. Yeah, it closed at 30.06. I think I hit a high of like 35 though. And then MU, pretty much break even on that one. That one hasn't really even started though, so I'm not too worried about that one. If we can start to trend above 108, 115, I should be like, I don't even know, 60% or so. So this will be a really sick trade. And both of them should fire off around the same time, in my opinion. And then last but not least, Intel just comes down to earnings. I'm a little bit hesitant. I shouldn't say hesitant, but it's like a little worrisome to see AMD underperform like that and sell off, and then have this trade in my pocket as well. I'm going to stick to my thesis though with the tax harvest kind of arbitrage being on the table here. And I really the risk is right here. Obviously, it's out of our hands once the market closes and the earnings report comes out. You can't close, but I'm pretty satisfied with my adds against this 21.98. Really, we're just looking for this to pop to 24.59. Right? If we can get above 24.59, you guys should know this level by heart by now. This is this old low. It should either open above that spot, or maybe it just rips straight through from the earnings report. But we're looking for it to do one of the two, right? Get through 24.59 and then make its way to 29, or this old low here around 30, right? So 29.27, or I'm sorry, 29.73 to 29.05. And that's pretty much it, guys. Just kind of a sitting and waiting game. I told you guys this, right? I mean, this is I mean, I kind of like trading like this. There's no real stress behind it. Obviously, there's stress in the drawdown. But if you have really good charts and you have good levels and the risk to reward is there, the risk is very simple. It's not like hazy on where you're going to stop out. It just kind of depends on the time frame and how aggressive it closes under if it does. This has been really simple. Like this has been very stress-free in my opinion, and I'm making good money. Like today, I was up like $4,500, $5,000. It is unrealized, unfortunately. But I still think I could pull about 30 to 40K off crowd and MU alone. I haven't even accounted for Intel. I haven't really accounted for LRCX, but yeah, I mean these could do very, very well, and it hasn't been that stressful. Like I said, I've been like waking up, going to the gym, taking my dog for a walk, spending time with my girlfriend at night. So it's been really nice. Obviously, as the election passes and things start to get a little bit clearer, I'll be more aggressive and I'll start putting some more trades on it and kind of embracing the volatility. But for right now, I mean, this has been pretty nice. And if you guys don't like it, I'm sorry. But I mean, this is kind of what the market's calling for. The lack of setups has been pretty brutal. All things considered, too. I mean, take a look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin broke this trend line, right, that everyone was hyping out about. And then take a look at one of its, kind of the way that you're supposed to trade it, or the way people have been trading it, is through Mara. This thing had a terrible day. It obviously broke through this little resistance here, right, these daily little highs, but then it closed right at that same level. So that's pretty wild to have, the two deviate away like that, or this deviate away from Bitcoin like that. This thing finished down like a tenth of a percent, right? So that's, I don't know, guys. And plus, you got to think the IV on this is insane, so it's got to move in it, a lot more to kind of get those gains. And I think a lot of people got caught on this. And this is what I said. I'm not saying I'm trying to be a predictor or a crystal ball person. But yeah, you got to be careful, man. Like I think a lot of people are going to get blown up chasing this Bitcoin move and trying to chase the miners. I mean, I keep looking at CLSK and I want to throw it on the watch list, but this is not a healthy look for miners, guys. And I'm fortunate because I didn't have to swing into this because I just didn't take the position. But if I had, you probably would have been up like 10 to 20%. Probably like 20%. But it sold everything right away. So these names are not looking healthy. I think these names are going to ruin a lot of people's accounts and then not have money to trade the election or post-election. So it's pretty hard. I get it. I know it's very hard. Like I'm tempted every day to try to trade crypto, or I can't talk right now. Trade crypto and get involved with that space because it feels like I'm being left out. But I really, it is what it is. Only other name here that I might entertain that's kind of volatile is GameStop. GameStop has the potential to base this gap here at 23.45. Obviously, this high here. And if you guys saw, right, it closed right around 23.45. So maybe we can grab something if it pulls back in basis here. I might join the apes with some options for like $25 calls or 30. But yeah, I mean that's the only other thing I would consider. Everything else kind of just aligns with the current things I have here. Potentially closing AMD for a loss on the 5 contracts, which is not that big of a deal. Like I said, I was never trying to get full position on that either way. That's why I never really added in. We were talking about this one a lot back here. As it was kind of seeping down into this trend line here, we got the weekly close back above 155, and I knew 155 was going to be huge because of that ASML news. It's underneath that, I think it was that Tuesday low. Had I added into these contracts when we closed back above that spot, I could have got my average like down into like the ones, like 1.5. I could have just added 20, 30 cons. Got half a position at the very least, and I would have made it like 200%. But just didn't feel like it was the right thing to do. I felt like reclaim 162 was correct. So I never had anything significant on this one. So it's okay. I'll eat losses like that, if I need to, especially going into an earnings. So I really don't care too much. But LRCX, BA are the kind of the two new positions I'm going to be looking at. BA specifically, LRCX, you guys should know I have the June 2025, so this will just be an add into this one. So that's going to be everything, guys. I appreciate it as always. Thanks for rocking with me. Thanks for riding with me as always. Yeah, I mean, let's try to finish out this thing strong, guys. I really, really, really encourage you guys to just be patient. Get rid of that itch, that urge to trade every day, and chase the cheap dopamine, man, because it's a real thing out here. It really is. And you're seeing it left and right. People aren't going to admit it. But if there's not a lot of hot charts right now. A lot of charts are actually pretty anemic and look gross. I mean, a lot of people, guys. So I saw a lot of fin to it, guys. all over the all-time high breakout here on JP Morgan, right? And they got destroyed. A lot of people were trying to trade Mara, right, through this high, destroyed. CLSK, people got destroyed, right? So just got to be careful. We only have a week left, really, until the election period occurs, and then the window of weakness will kind of end. I want to let that simmer or dampen for like maybe 2 or 3 days, and then it's time to start adding into the swings on some healthy charts or laggard charts that are still holding well in structure. And I think we're going to have a hell of a close of the year. So with that being said, see you guys.